Welcome to the Mental Breakdown. I'm Dr. Berney Wilkinson, and today's podcast is going to touch on the topic of lying. But first, a few announcements. The Handbook for Raising an Emotionally Healthy Child, Part 1, Behavior Management, and the Elimination Diet Manual are both books that are available on Amazon Kindle for immediate download. We always encourage folks to check those resources out. They're great guides to help you work on parenting your children, understanding typical and unusual or atypical behavior in children from birth through adolescence. And of course, the Elimination Diet Manual helps you explore the ways in which your diet or your child's diet may be influencing emotional, behavioral, or even physical problems or concerns in your life. So those are two great ways to address some of the issues that you may be experiencing in your life. The Parenting Your ADHD Child course is available at paideallc.com. There's a link to it in the show notes. You can go there, read through the outline, see what all the different lessons cover. It's a great tool for helping you understand ADHD, understand your ADHD child a little bit better, and hopefully develop some strategies that will help minimize some of the issues and problems and some of the common struggles that parents of children with ADHD experience. So it's there on the website and ready for you whenever you're ready. So again, click on the show notes and you will be able to get right there and check it out. All right, I think that's everything. Like I said, this podcast is about lying. I'm going to try to give you some important things to consider and think about as we look at this more common than we would like characteristic that we all seem to have. So enjoy. Welcome to the Mental Breakdown. I'm Dr. Berney. And today's podcast is going to be about lying. Now, not just lying for parents who are dealing with their kids who are lying. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but also us as adults. We lie. And I'm going to start off by asking just a couple of questions. The first question, of course, is why do we lie? And what is the purpose of us lying? And maybe more importantly, are all lies created equal? Is lying straight and to the point? That's something that we should think about and consider. But let's start out by talking about why people lie. And really, it comes down to two things. And the first one is people are lying for themselves. This may be to avoid trouble. It may be with the goal of deceiving other people. And it may be with the goal of getting something. But in these situations, the person is lying for themselves. They're lying to help themselves in some way. Rarely do people lie with the goal of hurting themselves. In the forensic world that I often work in, people lie for positive and negative reasons. For example, they may do something what we call malingering, meaning that they fake or lie about having impairments. So we think that, okay, well, they're lying about something that looks bad about them. Well, really what they're doing is they're trying to make themselves look really impaired so that they don't get in as much trouble. So they're lying or deceiving with the goal of some type of gain. On the other hand, sometimes people lie with the goal of presenting themselves very positively. They try to present themselves in a very favorable way by denying common faults that we all experience. One of my favorite examples is that on some tests, it'll ask you questions that we all do. For example, sometimes I laugh when people fall. Well, if you're trying to present yourself as overly virtuous and really good, you might lie and say, no, I would never lie if somebody fell. Well, the reality is that most of us, the vast majority of us, would laugh, some at least, when a person or somebody falls. I mean, that's the whole idea with slapstick comedy and those kinds of things. The amusement of that type of physicality. So people lie sometimes just to benefit themselves. Now, the other reason people lie is to maybe benefit or to help someone else. And so we might lie to protect someone else, or we might lie to motivate or encourage them to do something, or we might lie to try to guide a person in a particular direction that we feel that they need to go. It's not necessarily directly influencing or helping or promoting ourselves, but it is certainly doing that for the other person. And so, when somebody asks you something and in your mind you're thinking, man, you really still have a whole lot of work to do, but you still say, great job, you're doing so much better. At some level, perhaps it's true. I hope it's true. But we're also sort of misleading a little bit. And we use these words sometimes, misleading, lying, and there's fine lines between all those different things. But we do that because we want to help that person. We want to motivate them and encourage them to keep working, or to keep doing a good job, or to keep trying in the very least. Now, there is a third reason, and I hear this from especially parents at times, but sometimes people who are in relationships, and they'll say this about their partner. They're lying for no reason, lying simply for what's perceived to be for the sake of lying. And so an example of this that I often hear is that there's absolutely no reason why, but I asked him, he was on his way home from work, and I asked him, if he stopped anywhere or did anything on the way home, and he says no. And then I look at the bank later and I found out that he stopped at Publix on the way home. Well, why did he lie? Why would he lie about that? There's no reason to lie about that. He just lied. And it makes, of course, the spouse suspicious and leads to all kinds of problems that we have to deal with in therapy. But that perceived lying for no reason really does have a reason. The probability is, or the likelihood is that the significant other lied because he was worried about getting in trouble, or worried about his spouse or significant other getting upset with him because he should have asked her if he needed anything from Publix, or he should have, or he wasn't supposed to stop at Publix. Maybe he stopped there for an inappropriate reason, and so he doesn't want to get her upset or something like that. But there typically is an underlying reason. We may not see it. We may not know what it is. But there typically is some underlying reason that falls into one of those first two categories. So if we know why we lie, and we accept that we lie for one of those two reasons, we have to ask ourselves then that next question. Are all lies created equal? Is telling your wife that she looks good in a particular outfit, even when she doesn't, the same thing as your wife telling you that nothing's wrong when there is something wrong? The answer, of course, to that is much more challenging. I mean, are lies of omission, not telling somebody something, is a lie of omission the same thing as a lie of deceit, a lie with the goal of misleading someone or making them think something different than what actually happened? And there is a great deal of gray when it comes to this. Is it appropriate to leave out information because you know that including that information is going to cause more problems, cause hurt, cause damage to someone? Is leaving some of that information out okay, even though it's a lie? Is lying to deceive someone okay when you know that doing so is going to lead to the person making better decisions, or lead to them being happier or healthier, or feeling better about things? And so hopefully what those examples helped with is understanding that to evaluate a lie, we really need to look at the goal of the lie. What is the expected or desired outcome of the lie? If we're lying with the goal of something positive, helping someone or protecting someone, then that's one thing. If we're lying with the goal of deceiving someone so that we have personal gain, or it elevates us in some way, or hurts someone in some way, or helps us get away with something that we shouldn't be getting away with, well, then that obviously creates a very different situation. That's a very different reason for lying. Let's use an example real quickly. Suppose your wife is having a disagreement, a problem with one of her family members. And that family member is really bad-mouthing and really kind of doing some pretty negative things and saying some pretty negative things about your wife. And one day, that family member calls you and just goes off about your wife, like really negative things, really bad things. When you get home that evening and your wife asks you, hey, how was your day? Did you do anything today? And you say nothing about that phone call. Even if your wife asks you, hey, have you heard from so-and-so? And you say no. Is that lie acceptable? Is that lie okay? I mean, the goal, after all, is to protect your wife, because you know that if you tell her, really all you're going to do is cause her more emotional pain, more emotional distress. So is that lie okay? Certainly the purpose of the lie is to protect her, but what does it mean in the long run? What happens if later on your wife finds out about that conversation? And now, not only is she hurt because that family member called and was bad-mouthing you and said all those negative things, but now she's also hurt because you lied to her about it. So initially, the lie looks to be okay, or justifiable, perhaps is a better word to use. But when you think about it in the long run, now it looks a little bit less justified. It looks like it could cause more problems, more damage than it would otherwise. Now, what about the lies we tell our children? Yes, we lie to our kids. And I'm sure that there could possibly be kids watching, but it's true. We do that sometimes for their protection. We do that for a variety of reasons, whether it's in November and December when we talk to them about different things that are coming and happening and people who are watching, or we lie to them about other things in their day-to-day life, what they can do, what they can't do, why we don't want them doing things, and why we want them to do certain things. Are those lies acceptable, but the lies to our spouse and our significant other unacceptable for some reason? And so, again, there's this major gray area that we create for ourselves when it comes to lying that we really need to address. We really need to shine some light on these issues. Because none of this is saying that lying is okay. Lying is a problem. Lying tends to lead to more problems than it resolves, than it remedies. But that said, we can't simply say that lying is bad and then just say, okay, lying's bad, don't do it. Because we all do. We all do find ourselves in some way, and at some points in our lives, we find ourselves lying. So we can't just say lying is bad and then assume that everybody's then going to be truthful, and then become appalled when somebody lies. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that you would lie. Well, it happens. And so instead of being surprised, instead of being astonished by this fact, let's identify it, address it, and remedy it. Let's not treat it like it's a crime, that it's something that has to be hidden and punished. Let's identify it and find a remedy for it. And so let's talk a little bit about how to do that. First, the first real step, and this tends to be my first step with a lot of these kinds of things, the first step is admitting that it's a problem. I think that far too often we have these kinds of issues in our lives and we just try to hide it, we try to mask it, we try to pretend that it's not there. And when we do that, it's almost like we work to convince ourselves that it's not a real issue, that it's not realistic. It's just this myth out there that other people do. And, but when we look at our lives, when we look at When you look at your day today, the high probability is that at some point today, you're going to tell a lie. Now, it's not necessarily a massive lie. It's not necessarily a lie that's going to do any major harm to anybody, but you're probably going to say something that's misleading in some way, intentionally. You're going to intentionally say something that's misleading to someone. So let's begin this whole process by saying, okay, that happens sometimes. I do that sometimes. The second step then is to try to identify when, why, and how you lie. Are you the type of person that lies primarily to avoid conflict? Are you the type of person to lie primarily to have some need met? Are you the person who lies with the goal of gaining something that you want from someone else? If we can identify it, if we can tear it apart and kind of break it down into its components and see analytically when it happens, why it happens, and how it happens, then with step 3, we can then figure out a remedy to solve that problem. So, for example, if you're the type of person who tends to mislead, lie, to your spouse to avoid conflict, then we need to come up with a strategy for addressing that. So let's use the example that I said before about, if your wife is having a feud with someone in her family and she lies to you about it, or not, she doesn't lie to you about it. If she's having a feud with her family member and that family member calls you and then you lie to her and say that you didn't talk to him. Well, instead of doing that, what you should do is, before this situation, maybe today, before this situation happens, you have a conversation with your wife and you say, look, there are times when I feel like I need to talk to you about something, or there's things that I might need to tell you, but I'm really concerned because it seems like a lot of times when we talk about those kinds of things, you get really upset and you get really frustrated with me, and I don't want you to get frustrated with me when it comes to something that somebody else did or something that happened. I want to be able to talk with you openly about these things without the worry or concern that we're going to end up with an argument. Because something that has to do with your family or somebody at work or somebody else outside of this house has nothing to do with our relationship. And I don't want that to intrude on our relationship. And so you have this conversation with your significant other so that you have a code word, or you have something that you can say so that your significant other knows, okay, this is one of those situations that I know that could potentially make you frustrated, and I want us to be able to talk about it without you getting frustrated. And so then your significant other can say, well, you know what? Now is not a good time for us to talk about that. We'll talk about it later, or, let's talk about it this evening, or let's talk about it when we have a little bit more time. But setting that up ahead of time, setting that up with your spouse to say, this is, when I come home and I say, codename Alpha or whatever, and you say, that's the code word for, I have something really important that I want to talk to you about, but I want to make sure that you're okay for us to talk about it so that neither of us get upset and get overly aggressive or agitated or irritable about it, at least not with each other. I want us to be able to talk about it so we can problem solve and fix the issue, or at least talk about it long enough for me to let you know how I handled it before you start getting upset with me that it happened in the first place. And so working that out with your spouse ahead of time is going to be really important. And it's like that with most situations that we find ourselves in. I mean, most of us, when we lie, it's for those types of simple, basic, relatively benign scenarios. And so if we can find a way to prevent it from getting to the point where we feel as though we need to lie, well, that's going to solve all the problems then, or at least most of them anyways. All right, so once we admit that lying is something that most, if not all of us do, and we know when, how, and where we use those lies, and if we know, if we find ways to remedy most of those lies, the next thing we really need to do is we need to figure out how to address lying in our kids. Let's say, for example, that you ask your child something and he or she lies to you. All right, so how are you going to handle that? Are you going to respond, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you lied to me? Are you going to overreact and become angry and, again, sort of treat the child in a criminal type of way that, oh my gosh, you're such a bad person. I can't believe that you would lie to me. How can I ever trust you again? Do we want to treat them like that? Which is going to damage our relationship. It's going to, in reality, probably influence their truthfulness next time in not such a positive way. So how do we handle that? Well, I think it's very similar to what we were talking about just a moment ago. And that is that we have to accept the fact that our kids are going to lie sometimes. They're going to mislead us sometimes. And if we acknowledge that going ahead of time, then we can prevent it, and many times we can prevent it. Or second, we can address it in a way that brings the kid around to where we want them to be. Many times, parents will come in and say, well, before I even ask the question, I know he's going to lie to me. So my response to that is always, then why ask the question? Why give your child the opportunity, sort of set them up for the opportunity to lie to you? Why do that? Why put you or your child in that situation? Because now you already know that you're going to be angry with the child. And so it's like setting up the situation. All right, here it comes. I'm gonna get really angry with you. So let me ask you this question so that you'll lie to me, so that I can really get at you and get onto you about it and punish you in some way. Instead, we need to figure out a better way to communicate with our child, especially when we know that there's going to be a tendency for them to lie. So let's say, for example, that you're getting up one morning and you're getting ready for school, and your daughter can't find her glasses. And now in your home, let's say that the rule is, your glasses are either on your face or in your case. All right, so there's always a place for the glasses, and it's in neither place. You may know when you ask your child, where are your glasses? You probably know that she's going to lie to you. She's going to, because they're not on her face, and they're not in the case, so she's going to come up with something. So instead, perhaps, of asking her where your glasses, or overreacting, we're going to ask her, where are your glasses? And when she says she doesn't know, or if she gives some other lie, then we should then proceed with a couple of questions, such as, well, where was the last place you had them? Who was the last person you gave them to? What was the last thing you were doing when you had them on? And walk them through that process of problem solving to find the glasses. To ask them the question, and then they lie, and then you respond emotionally in an aggravated and agitated manner, and you start getting at them about it. Well, one, it's not finding the glasses, and two, it's not really solving the problem. Because the problem is, we need the glasses because we've got to get to school. So walking them through a couple of questions may help you identify or find where the glasses are, but what that means is finding the resolution, finding the answer. You're not even addressing the fact that the child lied to you. And it's not that's not to say that, again, that lying is permissible. It's not to say that lying is okay. It's to say, I'm not even going to acknowledge that because I know that's not true. Now let's figure out how to solve the problem. Let's figure out how to resolve this issue so that we can move forward with our day and with what we need to do. Sometimes we as parents, we work so hard to highlight and really magnify all of these faults, all of these problems, all of these little issues and things that our kids do that are problematic. And we tend to highlight them and really make them this huge thing. And okay, that's it. We have to have a discussion about lying. We have to have a talk about, what time you're supposed to be home, or how to follow curfew, or, whatever the case may be. We have this tendency or this need to really push those issues. And really, 9 times out of 10, none of that is necessary. None of that. We don't have to do any of those things. We don't have to do that, because what will happen to the child, especially teenagers, is about 37 seconds into that lecture, they're tuned out. They're done. They're not listening to you anymore, because they, in their mind, are saying, here we go again. That's just here we go, the same stuff over and over again. So you're gonna work hard. You're gonna find all these things to say. You're gonna have that emotional unload on your child about this infraction that they did that you can't believe that they would even consider doing. And the kid really isn't even hardly paying much attention to you. Not because they're being disrespectful, but just because, it's already done. What do you want me to do about it? Let's find a solution. The kid's probably not thinking let's find a solution. The kid's probably saying, I just want you to stop yelling at me. But in reality, what we need to do is then find a solution, and maybe more importantly, help the child find the solution. Help the child figure out the way to problem solve through this next time. So instead of saying, wear your glasses, and she lies to you, next time you say, wear your glasses, and she says, oh, I must have misplaced them. Let me think. The last place that I was wearing them was here. Then I gave them to this person, and this happened, and that happened. So she starts going through that process in her mind instead of feeling as though she needs to lie to you. Because like anxiety, like we've talked about in previous podcasts with anxiety and some other things, the fascinating thing about lying is that when we get zapped for lying, when we get in trouble for lying, that trouble is exactly what we were lying to get away from. And so the next time the situation comes up, we're more likely to try to lie again because, I really don't want to get in trouble. Last time I got in so much trouble about it, I don't want to get in trouble again, and so they're going to lie about it. Now, they're not necessarily going to put they're not necessarily going to put together that, okay, I lied, got in trouble. What they're going to put together is, I did this, got in trouble. I did this meaning I lost my glasses, or I did something I wasn't supposed to do and got in trouble. They're going to tend to omit that lie part. Because sometimes I don't think the kids always know that they're lying. Where are your glasses? I don't know. I don't know where they are. Well, it's probably not a lie. It's probably that she doesn't know where they are. Many times we see that stuff as lies because, well, you should know where they are. You should know what you did with them because it's always supposed to be in one of these two places. But it doesn't mean that because they're not in those places and you don't know where they are, that doesn't mean that you're intentionally lying. It just means that mom asked me a question, I don't know the answer, so I'm going to say I don't know, or I'm going to make up something to prevent her from getting more upset with me. And so opening up that conversation and talking about it, again, really is important. We teach our kids through modeling. We teach our kids that, how to handle these kinds of situations by direct instruction. So the next time you have a situation where you don't know where something is, and she comes in and asks you and say, Mom, where is my phone charger? Mom, can I use your phone charger? And you don't know where your phone charger is. And you, instead of saying, you know what, I must have, and you make up something. You make up something so that you can avoid the fact that you're not sure exactly where it is. You walk through that process out loud. You say, you know what? I usually put it right here because that's my spot for it, and I must have put it somewhere else this time. I wonder where I could have put it. Let's think. The last time I was using it, and then you walk through that process out loud so that they can hear it. And now they're learning how to handle those kinds of situations. Now, you can do something similar with almost every lying type scenario. It's not easy. It takes time. And parents, if there's ever something that I try and want parents to really understand, is that parenting takes time. When we get into the mode of punishment and that kind of stuff, it really is because we want a quick fix. We want it to stop right now. The reality is we need to find solutions that are long-lasting. And long-lasting is never the immediate solution. It's never the thing that's going to stop a behavior immediately. The long-lasting solution is going to be the thing where they learn the skills that they need to respond to situations the way they need to respond. And again, that goes for us as adults as well. So if you find yourself lying, if you find yourself in situations where, and these types of scenarios are times when I'm going to lie, and you figure out a way to resolve it, instead of brushing it under the carpet or saying, okay, I'm just going to stop. Because we know that's not true. We know you're not going to be able to. So instead of ignoring it in those ways, we address it, we figure out some solutions, and we work through that process. Well, we're going to find that we're much less likely to do them. Kind of went off on a couple of other things there, but that is all true for lying, but it's also true for so many other things that we do in our lives that are problematic. And so you can take those same skills and really apply them to just about anything. But again, with lying specifically, going back to the specific topic today, acknowledging that it happens, identifying when, how, and where it happens is important, and then finding a solution that's realistic, meaningful, and is going to help prevent those situations from happening again. That's the key to reducing our tendency to lie and our that drive to lie at times to protect ourselves. So, all right. I hope that's helpful. I would love to hear from you if you have any ideas or suggestions about how you handle or have handled lying, or a spouse or child or somebody that lies. I'd love to hear how you handled it. I'm always looking for new strategies for dealing with some of these things to share with others. So I also would love for you to write a review of the podcast on iTunes or rate us. Again, just kind of increases that awareness and lets other people know that we're here so that they will tune in and participate in the discussion. So, all right. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for downloading the podcast. And stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.